So, I'm back. I just spent a long time in the Crown Tundra. Did I have a great time there? No. But I did have an okay time. So, let's talk about it. Pokemon's Crown Tundra DLC came out a few weeks ago, and just this week I sat down to play through the bulk of it. I sunk a good number of hours into the map, and believe it or not, I did actually have some fun. And just like any other piece of media, I have strong opinions about it. So today I want to elaborate just a little bit on the things that I feel most strongly about in this DLC. In this review, I'm only going to be touching on the very good and the very bad stuff, because just like my review of the Isle of Armor back in June, I share a lot of those opinions here. Things like the steps into the open world mechanics, the bad graphics, and the replay factor that it gives to a mediocre game. None of those things have really changed. So today I'm going for something a lot more concise. So first up, Crown Tundra. It's in the name, there is a lot of snow here. If you don't like this part of Sinnoh, you're not going to like this place. Save for two areas, there's hail in every turn of battle, and there's a fair amount of ice types. I'd say half or more of all encounters are that type, meaning that the team that you'll be using here is likely a little less balanced than the team that you'll be using in other parts of Sword and Shield. And I guess that makes sense thematically, so I can't really complain about that. However, the snow is symptomatic of one thing that I do not like about this place. It is a big step backward in my opinion. I won't repeat it too much, but in my review of the Isle of Armor, I did mention how the wild area there was a lot less ugly than the one in the main game. There was a more realistic sense of scale, and there was less cheap usage of fog to make the depth of field smaller. And more importantly, they took risks by having dramatic elevation changes, bridges, towers, and rivers to make the area look natural, and have the boundaries be organic, rather than a poorly rendered wall like in the wild area. But here in the Crown Tundra, it's just as bad as in the main game. There are random, poorly rendered places where the ground just kind of ends. There's pretty much no real elevation change, and the snow makes it hard to see anything really. So it's not that visually impressive. Yeah, there's a few nice looking areas, but those are areas that are supposed to look nice, because they matter for the story. Like the legendary temples, scripted locations, and Freezington? Yeah, despite the stupid name, I actually really like this town. It has a nice purpose in the story, and I think the 3D controls in the town are so worth it. Buildings are still static inside, but the outside of the town feels so much more bigger and so much more realistic now that we have full camera control. I always thought it was pretty jarring to have that abrupt change to static camera in the main game, so it's cool to have a fully 3D town for the first time ever. It feels like a village from Breath of the Wild, the way it should be. It really helps with the sense of adventure in the game, but what doesn't help with the sense of adventure is the snow. Again, I hate to be so down on the snow, but the Crown Tundra is open world again, so that means you'll be going through these vast open fields of snow to go pretty much wherever you want. And regardless of how good your sense of direction is, you're gonna get lost. That's right, the downside to snow is that, shocker, everything kinda looks the same. You'll be headed in one direction and get into a battle for a few minutes and then hop right back into the overworld and have no idea which way you were walking. And that's because there's no distinguishing geographic markers. There's barely any bodies of water, no bridges, and no hills. There's a few temples and there's the cemetery. Like, I'm fine getting lost in an open world game, but I want to get lost in a fun way. I want to have distinguishing landmarks that I can use on my own and get a sense of location. Here, it's just not fun. It's frustrating most of the time. Especially since there's no other villages besides Freezington. So you're either in that town, a temple, or in a barren patch of snow. So, something a little bit more positive now. The main story, if you could call it that, centers around Calyrex, a new legendary Pokemon. This little, jackalope thing is actually obtained in a pretty cool way. I won't spoil the story all too much, but basically this little guy feels insecure about how he's being worshipped by the people of the region, and he wants you to help him feel good about himself again. That's the best way I can put it. Oh, also, he can talk. So you have to go around the Crown Tundra doing a series of tasks, none of which are tedious. It's all fun stuff, the lore is really well done, and it makes the Crown Tundra feel so much richer because the main legendary is so well integrated. Unlike Urshifu, who just kind of exists and is given to you fairly easily, compared to the way that you can catch Calyrex. There's one more interesting thing about Calyrex. One that I think game mechanic wise is actually pretty interesting, but design wise I'm pretty mad about. So there's two steed Pokemon that you can catch, Glastrier and Spectrier. Using items that you can get, Calyrex will have a special relationship with these two horses. Can you guess what? You take a Solgaleo and a Necrozma, just named Necrozma. Or when you take a Reshiram and a Kyurem, Black Kyurem. You get what I'm saying now? Probably not, because this thing is not a fusion. I'm sorry, I respect the mechanics of it. You take one of the two horses and you fuse it with Calyrex, so it becomes one Pokemon in your party. But look at these things. In what world are these two separate Pokemon? It's literally Calyrex riding another Pokemon. Like, you wouldn't call this a Pokemon, or even a form difference, so why is this a brand new form of Calyrex? Besides that, I think Calyrex is pretty neat. It's introduced not only in the story super well, but also the main game. That subplot is introduced, and then you can just do it on your own terms. I was on my way to do the Calyrex plot at a new location when I got lost, and I just happened to stumble on one of the Regi temples. I think it's so cool how I just got to choose which aspect of the Crown Tundra to prioritize at which time. It wasn't like in past Pokemon games where something was introduced and literally everything else was blocked off until you did that one thing. It really increases the richness and the lore of the world of Pokemon if you're able to feel like an actual adventurer and stumble onto a mysterious temple in the snow at your own pace, rather than just feeling like a kid who has to watch 500 cutscenes and then get something handed to him arbitrarily. That goes for every legendary in this game, including the Galarian forms of the birds, and the new Regis. On top of that, you get the dens for all the box legendaries, and that's just the icing on the cake here. You have to rent Pokemon, which feels weird, but I love how that balances it all out. You can't just stomp a max raid Pokemon with a level 100 IV trained guy that you have in your box. I won't spoil anything, but there is a huge consortium of Pokemon that you can access. One caution though, the boss at the end, you can only catch once. So if you're shiny hunting, which you should because the odds here are literally 1 in 100 if you have the shiny charm, just make sure that you do not catch the legendary if it is not shiny. I didn't know that you could only get one of each, and that's how I missed out on a shiny Suicune. I only hate myself a little bit for that, and I'm sure the pain will slowly go away as I live the rest of my life. So those are the big things that I wanted to touch on about the Crown Tundra. Overall, I had a pretty okay time playing it. The same issues persist from the main game of Sword and Shield and certainly the Isle of Armor, and I definitely hate the fact that it took us 2 batches of paid DLC to get what amounted to pretty much a semi-complete game. But I do genuinely have hope that we'll get a good Pokemon game in the next generation, one that lives up to the potential of the Switch. The pieces are really coming together. There's a more robust online experience, there's more free-roaming adventure, and I know people love to bag on it, but the graphics are getting a little better. So here's to hoping. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and rambles on the Crown Tundra. I'll likely be live streaming some shiny hunting or Dex completion in the next week or 2. In the meantime, I've got new Star Wars content coming every Monday and a brand new Pokemon, video game, or general pop culture longer video every Saturday. So I'll see you next time for more content.